Calumet region. My name is Jim Dedelow, Dedelow. I'm here at 7150 Indianapolis Boulevard on the campus of Purdue Northwest in the Strachan Van Til Studios, and I'm going to tell you about an update that you're just not going to believe because it has been 207 days since I've been able to tell you this, and that is that it is set to be 80 degrees here on May 1st of 2018. It has not been 80 degrees for 207 days. And what day would that have been? We've got Boy Genius here with us. He'll figure that out. It had to be in October sometime, right? And high of 83 today, partly sunny and warm, and 53 and clear, though, right now. So I got a little sweater on. This is one of those days where you start out with a sweater, standing out on Indianapolis Boulevard next to a dead bird, and then next thing you know, you're walking around in the afternoon, and people are like, what kind of weirdo are you wearing a sweater when it's 83 degrees out? Anyways, tonight it gets down to 64 degrees. Tomorrow, a shower or thunderstorm in spots and a high of 80. And I guess we are going to have another high of 80 tomorrow. All right, I'm surprised at that. And then Thursday, a high of 74 with some thunderstorms. And then Friday, a high of 71. At Local 41, of which I am a proud alum in Munster, Indiana, it is right now 54 degrees. And in Portage at Local 395, it's 54 degrees also. Down, 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 the ring of fire, the ring of fire. Don't forget about the Region Riots Criterium coming up. This is a bike race, a 1.3-mile circuit on city streets. It is a closed course. There's no center line rule observed. There'll be food, drink, live music, giveaways, and a bunch of preems. And this is sponsored by Region Racing, but it is powered by Strack and Van Til. And that'll be coming up on May 12th. So that won't be this Saturday, but the following Saturday, because this Saturday has a zillion things on it. Hard Hat outing is this Saturday. That is the union guys and the union contractors all get together, and then there's end users like Billy Baker who actually build things, and all those people get together and they play golf and they try to get to know each other. And I will be there, but I won't be golfing as expected, as Alexis is giving the commencement at Purdue Northwest, and she's got to give that same speech twice. We spent 5.5 hours yesterday mulling it over, so it's done. And you have to submit it ahead of time. And so there it is. It's all in. And you guys are in for a treat. All right. Chuck Pullen's here. How you doing?
So our last 80-degree day was October the 4th. Thank you, Tom Skilling.
October the 4th.
October the 4th.
Think how many days in between it's just been nasty over and over. It's been down to below zero. The worst days to me are like 43 degrees. With a wind off the lake, and it's gray out, and it's raining sideways, and it's been that way for 3 days. How's that? Did that just depress you?
Can I tell you I don't mind those kind of days?
Okay.
I really don't.
Really? I love it when it's cold, really cold and clear.
Right.
Love those cold, clear days.
We had a lot of those really cold days, but they weren't windy. So it wasn't. It's kind of like when they talk about, Las Vegas and the dry heat. It's like, how do you guys stand minus 35? It's like, well, if it's not windy, it's not too bad. You don't even notice it.
You don't. And plus, you pretty much spend your life going in and out of cars, you know what I mean? And then, unless you're Mark Harbin out of Whiting, you actually wear a coat. That guy wears those real thin, like you got on, but you got a T-shirt on, polos in the middle of winter, and he won't wear a coat. Does
he wear shorts, too?
No, he wears like those old man nylon pants. That
the warm-ups or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Not very warm, though?
Yeah, they're not very warm. And I just, every time I see him, I'm like, it must be because he lives in Whiting. And it's not like living in St. John where if you need to go outside for something, you got to walk a long way. In Whiting, you just kind of walk out of one door and you walk down to the next door.
Right.
By the way, we ate at Beggar's Pizza yesterday after visiting the Mascot Hall of Fame. It was excellent. They have a nice buffet, a nice chicken noodle soup, and some excellent pizza out there. It was just a really good time. Thanks a lot to El Spager and Mayor Joe Staher from for showing me around Whiting. And we will play some of that video that we did out there. It's a beautiful building. It's amazing. We got a full tour of it. And Christina and I have pledged to go back with our DSLR camera and put together maybe a little 3-minute video so you can see it once they start putting exhibits up. Right now, it's just a big empty shell. Chuck Pullen is here. Our good friend, Verley. Verley, I know you're listening. We're thinking about you, and we'll just we're hoping that you can make it back next week. How's that sound? She's been out. She was out last week, and she was out this week. We kind of knew it was going to be 1 week. We didn't know it was going to be 2. So she should be back next week. In the meantime, we've got the exact opposite in Chuck Pullen here.
I wouldn't say that necessarily.
I know. I'm kidding with you. Is it all right if I kid around a little bit?
And I suppose.
Hey, want a pistachio?
Wow.
Just had a caller say he will see us next Tuesday.
Okay.
What the heck? Hey, would you like a pistachio?
Okay, I'll see you next Tuesday too, Mad Mac.
Yeah, what?
No, I don't eat on the air, Jim. Sorry, it's kind of a habit of mine.
Hey, let's go. You know, there's a lot going on in the world, but can we just get something out of the way here?
Mm-hmm.
I need to get a camera out there.
No, I was looking at that. I was thinking about that as well.
All right, can you fix it
We'll
for
figure
us?
something out.
Because we need to, you know, I go out there in the morning. It's getting nice. Sometimes in the winter, I wouldn't go out every day, and the ironworkers are sponsoring me to go out there. So we got to put a camera out there, and I want to get it right up next to the road so that right when the truck goes by, it feels like it's like going to hit the camera.
Right. Okay.
All right.
Can look into that.
Hey,
ideas.
What's going on in the world? Hey, yesterday, let's hit this one first. This debate here in Indiana, we played the debate. Did we get the debate on? Ryan, did we get the debate on? We did. We had the debate on. I didn't listen to it, but we had it on the radio. Todd Rokita from Munster, Luke Messer from downstate, and Mike Braun is a guy that is just a business person, and he's winning this thing.
Right.
Why is he winning this?
Because that's what people are looking for.
What?
That's what people are looking for. I mean, did we not learn a lesson from President Trump? That's what people want now. They don't want career politicians. They want businessmen, and they want something different, especially the conservative Republicans.
How about on the Democratic side?
They don't like change. They just want it the same way it's always been.
All right, let me ask you a question. If I were to run against Pete Visclosky as just a businessman, with you know what, I'm not altogether different from Braun here, right? I don't have I just run a business and kind of independent and stuff. And I were to run against Pete Visclosky, do you think I'd have a snowball's chance in HE double toothpicks around here?
Democrats don't like change. It's Pete's. That is Pete's seat until Pete decides it's no longer his seat. I mean, that's the way we do it.
Seat?
It's his seat. That's the way we do it. I mean, nobody wants to change. The region sits here and criticizes me and saying you don't like change and you don't like the future, but they elect the same people for 30 years. They elect the same names, change seats, they change offices. They just keep electing the same class over and over again and then criticize those of us that want to try something different. And that's fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But then you don't get to criticize and, you don't get to elect the same person for 30 years, your entire life, and then say, oh, well, it's everybody else's fault that everything's the same and nothing's changed. You know what I mean? That's it. It gets frustrating. It gets frustrating, honestly. Tom has traffic.
Hey,
CTA.
By the way, Chuck is not here in any official capacity, but he is the chairman of the Lake County Libertarian Party. Let's see how Tom's been doing. Tom, I don't have any traffic. What happened? Something happened?
Jim.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to call. I was on my way to work yesterday, and it killed me that I couldn't talk to you about Mike Laylaw.
You know that guy?
I knew him like all through my childhood, and I mean, you talk about a respectable. He was a hell of a golfer. When he used to play out at Sherwood, I begged him to be his caddy. He was just a magnificent man. And when I was growing up, I was from the Riverside Park area, and he used to go around to all the city parks and take that trampoline with him. And he was the most gentle, he was soft-spoken man. And hats off to you, Jim. You picked a class act. Mike Layloff was the best.
All right, so hold on a second. Let me give a little background here. On Friday, I went over to Purdue Northwest, and they opened up this big new golf center for the golfers to play all through the winter and practice. And it's the Mike Layloff and the Barb and Bernie Fisher, but mostly it's Mike Layloff. And I got a whole bunch of stories from the Fishers about Mike Layloff. He was a 1941 Hammond High grad. Evidently, he saved all his money, worked for the city of Hammond schools, and then he was a big golfer and left some money behind in an estate, and they're using some of that estate to build that center. And I started getting all these stories about him in the trampoline, and I remember him in the trampoline because sometimes he would set it up over by Kenwood, and he would have it at the Hammond Civic Center. And I put it out there yesterday, and nobody called me all day about it. Thank you so much.
I can't believe it. I mean, this guy was an icon in Indiana, or not in Indiana, but just in Hammond. And when he'd play in that Hammond Times golf tournament, there was another guy, Jimmy. It's not going to come to me right away. It's too early in the morning. But they had some jewels. That guy was such a great guy. I mean, I ran across him one time, and he had no idea that I was behind him. And there was a lady, she had like 2 or 3 kids with her in Speedway out there on Route 30. And the woman was just totally disorganized. Mike Layloff pulled out his wallet, and he says, "Don't worry about it, lady. I got it for you. You got enough of your problem." And he was just absolutely such a great guy. I mean, and for nobody to remember him, I mean, he used to go around in the early 60s, and the city of Hammond used to have, those different type of handicraft type of things where you could go to your local park. You could play on that softball team to represent that park, and they called it handicraft. And you could play your loop tennis, box hockey, and they would have like Olympics through all the different parks. And with us being from Riverside Park, we called ourselves the Riverside Rats, and we are the original Riverside. Often imitated, but never duplicated.
You know what? I remember the Riverside Rats, to be honest with you, and I was told to stay away from them.
No. We're just a bunch of guys that would sit underneath a street light, and we of course, we had to sneak a little bit of a nipper, and we'd sit underneath the street light, and we'd play poker, and we had a couple of Hammond cops. They knew what we were doing. Hey, deal me in a couple of hands, will you? And it was only nickel dime stuff to be able to go over to Lum's and have a beer, the ice cold beer.
Hey, Tom, the Mike Layloff, you're going to have to get over to Purdue Northwest and see the Mike Layloff Golf Center because it's top of the line. And you know what bothers me is that, I grew up in Munster essentially, but we're really Hammond people, and I spent most of my childhood in Hammond, and goes back several generations. And what bothers me is there's not that many old Hammond people left around that remember all these things, like going to.
You remember Rod Higgins? He ran the whole park department back in the day. That was early 60s. Now we're talking 60, 61, 62. He ran the park department from the Hammond Civic Center, and he would spend his time developing a softball tournament for everybody in Hammond. Columbia would be playing against Irving, and Orchard Park would be playing Hestville.
Forsyth Park.
Forsyth Park.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Tom. Thank you so much for calling in on this. I was a little taken aback. I got off the air and I'm like, This guy has given through his estate a whole bunch of money to the Purdue Northwest golf team. He's really kind of put it on the map. And I'm like, nobody remembers him. And
Thank you for bringing him up.
All right.
I mean, he deserves every good word that you can put out about him. Is absolutely true, Jim. You're a wonderful person for doing that.
All right, Tom, thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
All right, bye-bye now.
Talk to you. Be right back.
John Salzader, Democratic candidate for North Township Advisory Board. You have heard me on these airways before talking about my family charity, its events, and the groups it supports. Now I've decided to run for your North Township Board. I am well qualified and ready to work for you. Elect John Salzader.
Approved and paid for by the committee to elect John Salzader.
On May 8th, vote for Democrat Andrew Silvestrowitz for Lake County Clerk of Circuit Courts. Andrew is a qualified Democrat and has 12 years of experience as a councilman in Maryville at every facet of government. Make your vote count with Andrew Silvestrowitz for Clerk of Circuit Courts. Paid for by committee to elect Democrat Andrew Silvestrowitz.
I am Andrew Silvestrowitz, and I approve this message.
You do have a choice for a new beginning. Vote Wally DeRose for Lake County Sheriff. He has an outstanding record as police commander, federal agent, and Army veteran. Integrity, honor, and a lifetime of service in Lake County. Paid for by the committee to elect Wally DeRose.
Baxter Printing, located at 3837 Ridge Road in Highland, is a family-owned and operated union print shop that has been serving Northwest Indiana for over 60 years. Our list of satisfied customers range from union locals and politicians to the everyday entrepreneur working hard to get their business off the ground. We help make that happen through our expert design and advice, creating everything from every-door direct mailers to business cards and banners. Why don't you let the Tarosi family at Baxter Printing assist you in your next project? Call us today at 923-1999 and hear me say, Baxter Printing.
Baxter Printing. Baxter Printing. You know, I love going in, like yesterday I went and hung out a good portion of the day with Joe Staher and Al Spager down, and I saw Bob Rovi. He works for Alert Alarm. He was putting in the alarms in the new Mascot Hall of Fame, Bobby Rovi. Now, speaking of old Hammond, there's got to be at least one person that remembers Rovi's Tap. Well, it was that family, and I knew them, and I got to tell you guys a sad story before we go anymore. So, guys, Bob's fixing, he's standing on the ladder, and I'm doing all this stuff with Spager and just marveling at this new Mascot Hall of Fame. And he goes, "Hey, Jimmy." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Are you Jim?" Yeah. He goes, "Bob Rovi." "Oh, Bob, how are you?" We talked for a while, 85 grad of Munster. And I did not know this. And in a sad twist of events, I used to kind of date his sister in junior high and into high school a little bit.
That's not the sad part, is it?
No, the sad part is he informed me that she had passed.
Oh, that is sad.
And I did not know that 4 or 5 years ago, and that's kind of weird. I mean, I wouldn't know that. No one would have ever alerted me to that. I also would like, now that we're talking on that vein, I would like to offer the condolences to, I don't know if it came out in the paper yet, but I think it will. And Larry Helt, I was talking to Larry. Larry's brother George passed away on Friday, and the visitation is going to be Thursday at Chapel Lawn in Crown Point. So that's George Helt, one of the better softball players around here back in the day, speaking of old Hammond, playing behind the Hammond Civic Center. And he played for the Hammond JCs, but he also had the auto glass place forever here in Hammond. George Helt has passed away. All right, so there you go. Traffic 294 around the city looks pretty good. 80 going east and west looks good. Bishop Ford, Dan Reiner, lighter than normal. Skyway Toll Road, Borman, I-65. That's because it is a beautiful day. It is just something to just grab onto. And a high of 83, partly sunny and warm. What a great day. Billy Baker, I was going to go play golf with you today, but I think instead I'm going to be walking around Wicker Park this evening with my wife. And that's probably a better choice at this point, since I've been taking finals for about a week and a half now and have totally neglected her. So 53 degrees right now, though, at the Strachan Van Til Studios here. And we're going to leave the poor lighting on us for a little while because there's a beautiful sunrise coming in the studios here. A high of 80 tomorrow, a shower or thunderstorm in spots. And then by Thursday and Friday, gets a high in the low 70s and possible rain on those days. So enjoy it while it's here. Chuck Pullen is here. And Chuck, what were we talking about?
So we were talking about the Senate debate.
No, but there was something else you brought up before that, and I should. That's why I write everything down so I can go back to that keyword right before we were going on the air.
Oh, we talked about the breaking of windows for dogs. That's what Ryan was talking about.
Is that legal to do?
Yes, it is now legal. You can break a window if there is a dog in distress. I assume a child or a cat or any type of animal.
You can break the window?
You can break the window of a vehicle.
I guess that's a pretty good deal, and you don't have
Yeah.
to pay for it.
Right.
But when would you have to pay for it?
I assume if you just break somebody's window, you're responsible at that point.
Yeah, that would
It was
probably
not
be right.
a child or an animal in distress.
Speaking of vandalism, I went to that Mascot Hall of Fame yesterday, and because of the vandalism and the deep degree that these young men did, I think they were 15-ish, they were juveniles, they had to repaint the entire inside of that thing to the tune of, I don't know, 40 grand or so. And it's all different colors. It's real brightly colored. I mean, they had to paint the whole thing over inside. And what you have there, though, is a possible silver lining in that, and that the paint company came in, and they're like, what is this? And then they may be becoming a sponsor, and so you actually might make a little bit of money out of having to repaint this whole thing. So, hey, if life gives you lemon, you know what to do. Chuck Pullen is here.
Paint the walls yellow.
Chuck Pullen, Mike Braun is coming in, and he is trying to out-Trump all the other people. People are falling all over themselves just to kiss the leather shoes of Donald Trump.
Right. So there's an Indy Star article that covers it really well. They talk about the 8 takeaways from the debate, and the first point is they really, really, really like Trump. And so, yeah, there's been this whole discussion in this debate is basically everybody who's trying to say that, Trump likes, it's kind of like when the kids are in the back seat going, Mom likes me more. No, like Mom likes me more. It's Trump likes me more. And then finally the White House came out and said, we don't like any of you. So, but what was interesting about the debate, if you don't know, is the moderator was Abdul Hakim Shabazz. And we've actually had him on the radio here a couple times. He is a political commentator from Indianapolis, originally from Chicago. He is a very libertarian-leaning conservative. And what was funny is that Todd Rokita at one point refused to be in the debate because he called him part of the liberal media. And so one of the funny things about being a libertarian is that conservatives label you liberal and then liberals label you conservative. So you kind of always know that you're right there in the middle when both sides are insulting you equally. So it was a funny thing.
Kind of like this.
Kind of like this. But so in the case of Abdul, no, I know him, and he is the farthest thing from liberal media. But I mean, that's the thing about, so in Todd Rokita's case, he's trying to, out conservative Abdul, and, so there's that whole thing about that. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of questions about Mike Braun's voting record.
All right, let's go back to that.
Yeah.
You brought something up there. And it's interesting in that situation, in that Abdul Hakim Shabazz, and I've read some of his stuff too, he does come out with some extremely liberal things. You know what I mean?
And also some very conservative things.
Some very conservative things. So what happens in that situation? If you have some of you that is conservative and some of you that is liberal, you have no friends, because this bit that is liberal is anybody who's like a Trump whack job, okay, will say, gosh, you have a little bit of liberal in you, so you're rejected entirely as an individual, because if you're not just with me, you're no good. And I think that's the problem in America. It's not. Well, anyways, and so the same thing. If you have fiscally conservative views and you have on regulation or foreign relations or use of the army or whatever, and then you have liberals
socially liberal views, right?
Yeah, whatever. You have liberals that'll say, "Well, geez, you must be one of them.
You're a war hawk, yeah.
You're that." So you don't have a lot of people, and the ones that are in different little groups. There are media, and it's almost always at the local level anymore, because at the national level they've all taken sides. But there are media that have both, and I would like to put us in that. I mean, our programming up and day is all over the place, okay?
Absolutely.
And then I would like to say that you are, as Chuck has got some of the most goofy liberal ideas, and then he's like some sort of really deep conservative. So you get no friends, because most people driving around really kind of interpret the world in one way or another.
Right. The battle lines have been drawn, and it's very difficult.
I don't know when that happened, because I worked here in the mid '80s, and they could have great discussions in the morning.
Right.
And there were people, person after person, that it would take an idea from both sides and kind of synthesize it. Larry Peterson was excellent with that at Party Line during the 70s and the 80s. It's very difficult.
Right. And what I notice a lot of times is that sort of to Ryan's joke earlier about how people tune me out and people would tune Verley out, depending on what Tuesday it is, depends on who tunes us out. You know, a lot of people have just sort of gotten to the point where this is my opinion. This is the opinion that, you know, the media that I follow gives me. And that's it. I don't want to hear your opinion. I don't want to debate you. And I people all the time. There are people that constantly want to debate me on Facebook, or argue with me on Facebook, I should say. And I invite them, especially if they're local people. I said, why don't you come on the radio? Let's discuss it. You know, people that call me an idiot on Facebook all day long, I said, come on the radio, show everybody how I'm an idiot. Let's discuss. But they never want to do it. You know, I mean, nobody wants to have like you said, sort of a philosophical debate about issues. They just want to name. I mean, and it's not everybody, but generally that's what you see on Facebook, and you see that now more in the media, more in Washington, is you just want to name call and not really have a discussion. I'm the kind of guy I love having discussions about things, but you also have to be open-minded to the fact that, you know, there are some debates where you just say, look, we're gonna agree to disagree, and that's it, and we're never gonna see eye to eye, but at least let's have the discussion.
Okay, so I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I've been kind of like looking at the late 50s and the early 60s. I listen to Gene Shepard stuff. I've been reading old Vonnegut stuff. I've been reading through some old newspapers and stuff, and I'm watching the Kennedy thing on
right.
Bobby Kennedy now. And it seems to me like, I'm like, have we had spots in history where we're able to say, listen, we were very divided and we couldn't talk to each other, okay? And what did that lead to? Okay, well, maybe in the late 50s, early 60s, we really started to get divided. You had this like extremely civil rights conscious Kennedy-led thing. And then you had an incredible backlash to all of it. Some of it was based on race, but it wasn't entirely based on segregation and stuff. We had a huge divide then. Ultimately, it kind of led to the kind of cataclysm of the late 60s with the Vietnam War, huge death of men and women in some Asian country, and then you had huge uprisings in America. And if you ask me, the deep division that is going on right now leads to something. And then we get back to an era where we go, all right, we can all kind of listen. We're all Americans. Let's figure it out. But right now, this division is at a kind of an acute point. Would you agree with that?
Well, and so that leads me to something I also wanted to talk about. I don't know if you talked about Michelle Wolf at all yesterday. So she was the comedian that appeared.
Yes, okay. I did.
Yeah, so I have Christina fired up a clip, one of the few clips that we can play. And so, yeah, I definitely, if you haven't heard it, I watched the whole 20-minute set yesterday. I mean, it is very mean. It is very mean-spirited towards Republicans. You know, she got in jabs at Sarah Huckabee Sanders, at just constant jabs at President Trump and Mike Pence.
She did have one good one.
She had a few good ones. I won't deny that.
I'll give it, you know, Mike Pence is what happens when Anderson Cooper isn't gay.
Right. No, and
come on,
but she's
pretty good.
No, that was funny, but she's, you know, it's basically insulting somebody for being a gentleman. Do you know what I mean? For being the kind of guy that he
still funny.
No, it's absolutely funny.
All right, but anyways, Michelle Wolf was the woman at the
Why don't we have Christina play just a few seconds?
Yeah, go ahead, play it, and here we go. Michelle Wolf, the White House Correspondents Association dinner, and it is right now with Christina. Go ahead.
On it or something. There's a lot of print media here. There's a ton of you guys, but I'm not going to go after print media tonight because it's illegal to attack an endangered species by newspapers. There's a ton of news right now. A lot is going on, and we have all these 24-hour news networks, and we could be covering everything, but instead we're covering like 3 topics. Every hour, it's Trump, Russia, Hillary, and a panel of 4 people that remind you why you don't go home for Thanksgiving. Milk comes from nuts now, all because of the gays.
So there it is.
I didn't want to play too much of that. So
I think she goes into an F-bomb there.
No, later on. So yeah, that's all we can really play of that. But so that kind of gets to my point, though, is that you know, it was very mean spirited. And even they were saying after the fact, even, you know, who we call the liberal media was even, you know, they were saying that that was too far. And so that just goes to the divide. You know, the divide just keeps growing and growing. And but she did also attack the liberal media quite a bit. But it's funny how, you know, she was attacking the liberal media for not attacking Trump enough, kind of thing. You know.
All right. Well, let's bring that locally here. Are we divided here locally?
I don't think so, because it's all one party. So you know, there's basically all one party, and then, you know, me. So we're not really that divided. I think when you see the division here, it's more internal. You know, it's the Democratic Party internal politics that they're, you know, that's the big issue around here. Is you've got the camps. You know, you've got the different camps among them. And so, you know, that's kind of like, I'm just the outsider watching eating popcorn and watching the show. Because, I mean, they really don't have a horse in the race on that kind of stuff. You know, when it comes to the sheriff's race and things like that, I just kind of sit back and watch the show.
Well, I mean, we have a pretty good show at the statewide level, and Mike Braun and Todd Rokita and Luke Messer, and they're ripping on each other pretty hard. And Mike Braun, if you want to hear that, I had him on Friday. Just go find it. I'm doing a new website to organize it so people could find it a little bit better, but you'd have to go way down there and get Friday's show. And near the end of it, I interviewed Mike Braun, and he just couldn't say enough bad things about Washington, D.C. and about the guys he's running against. He's like, they're career politicians. They're losers.
Right. So then in that debate, race, it's specifically the far right trying to outright each other. Do you know what I mean? So again, you've turned off the majority of Americans. Going back to our point from last time, it was, you know, 2/3 of Americans no longer consider themselves hard Democrats or hard Republicans. So, you know, the things that happen around here, the things that happen in that debate, you mentioned it last week. You said nobody's really paying attention to that race for the most part.
No one had asked me to have these guys on, and then Walt called in and said, you know, you're shirking your responsibility. And I'm like, you know what, Walt, I am. I got access to these guys. There's a few Republicans that need to hear them. So I had Braun on. We're working on Luke Rokita and Messer.
Well,
go on.
Right. And so to that point, though, they know their base. They know their downstate Indiana, you know, hard conservative base, and they're trying to just out-Trump each other. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe
and
that's
again,
why they're not coming up here.
Right,
They don't want to.
They don't need to. I mean, they really don't need to, and there's nothing they can really do to connect to the people up here, because that, you know, you're gonna have a discussion about trying to out-Trump each other. The people around here aren't gonna have it. Do you know what I mean? So,
you know what? I guess if you're a campaign strategist, you're like, well, why would I go up there? I might be able to get some of, you know, there's not that many downstate hardcore Trumpers up here. There's a few, and they're, you know, what are you going to do? Out-Trump the other guy? I guess there's really no advantage to coming up here.
There's so few.
And maybe that's why it's kind of difficult right now to get Rokita and Messer on. Typically, these guys are all falling all over each other, to be honest with me.
Yeah, they will be the next time. They will be in the general. Not now. They know it's just a waste of their time, honestly. I mean,
and it actually might turn on. It might actually hurt them more for more people to hear them.
Right.
Say, I'm not voting for that.
Well, that's
guy.
what I'm saying. I mean, you're right. Yeah. So that's sort of the issue, is that, you know, people aren't voting for people anymore. They're voting against the other person. And so you have a lot of races where it just becomes, don't say anything stupid. Do you know what I mean? And just don't say anything stupid, and just try to, you know, not offend as many people as possible.
Let's see if this guy says stuff that's stupid once in a while, but not that often. How you doing, Dave from Gary?
Hi, Chuck.
I don't think Dave. I can't recall Dave saying something stupid recently.
We'll find something in the archives.
I bite my tongue a lot. That's for sure.
He definitely does that.
No, I wanted to chime in about the spots that are running regards to the Senate race. A lot of religion being interjected, and I look at Indiana as being odd in regards to it's a northern-southern state. If you get what I'm saying,
sure.
It is a northern Bible Belt state, and if I was a Republican candidate, state-run Republican candidate, I would just completely ignore Lake County, and probably around Fort Wayne and some of Marion County as well. And you got to pick your battles. I think we saw that in the last election, presidential election, where you just kind of, you know, you fish or cut bait, and you say, you know what, it's really not worth the $2 million for me to go here. I think it could be used more here. So it's, I think the last election, you really kind of saw how partially how the sausage is made. But I wanted to
hold on. Let's talk about that for a second. You know, sitting here, one of the views you get is to see how different candidates use the media. Okay, not just us. I talk to other people, and you can see what they're buying. But Mike Braun, if you notice here, isn't saying, hey, I want to be on Jim Dedelow's show, and somehow I'm going to get more Republicans to vote for me. He's smart. There's a lot of people that listen to Laura Ingraham from 10 to 12 here.
I do every day.
Yeah, and he's all over that. And so somebody got – I mean, I'd like to see when people are smart in their elections, and once in a while I'll point it out. And I think there's a lot of people being really dumb right now on the Lake County side, but that's another one altogether. I won't even bring that. But he's buying and he's hitting that. And, you know, the numbers would show that there's a lot of that base that listens to the Laura Ingraham show. He's being real smart with it. I'm surprised the other ones aren't taking advantage of that.
Yeah, but go ahead, Dave.
No, in regards to the Libertarian Party, and it is a real party. But Chuck, you might agree with me. It's still not the established Republicrats, right? They are the Republican and Democratic Party is just they are really staunchly defending their two-party monopoly. And I know that doesn't make sense being two-party, but nevertheless, as far as I'm concerned, it is. And you know, we got a little bit of traction in the Libertarian Party, but it's just seems there's just that establishment. We're going to defend it to the nth degree because that's our thing, and we don't want a legitimate third party in there knocking on our back door and stealing our votes and our money.
And I think it's basically, you know, you meet people and it's basically, you know, I was born a Catholic and a Democrat. Do you know what I mean? And that's sort of it. And my parents were Democrats. My grandparents were Democrats. We go all the way back to the Works Projects. I remember my grandmother wrote that and had a book, and she wrote that in the book, said, you know, our family's voted Democrat since we got electricity at the farm kind of thing, thanks to the Works Projects and stuff like that. And that's sort of the thing is that, you know, you're lifelong whatever. You're a lifelong Catholic, you're a lifelong Democrat. And that's just the way it is. And to get somebody to change parties is like
demonization of the party as well. They're not one of us. And it's, when you talk about any Libertarian Party or Green Party, I'm throwing those out there because I don't mean to lump them together, but it is what it is. So the establishment, Republicans and Democrats, of course, what are they going to do is demonize it. They're not legitimate. They're just crackpots. That's the whole framing to protect themselves. And it's the way it is. It's probably going to be that way till they plant you in the ground.
Well, and the thing is, I think we realistically, I mean, and I don't think we need 3 parties. I think we need 6 parties, something like that. And when you look at the Democrats specifically, you have a pretty deep divide between the Bernie-crats.
Careful, Chuck. That's a European model.
Well,
Be careful when you start saying parties.
No, 6 parties. But I mean, when you look at the Democrats, for instance, you've got the Bernie-crats that basically don't even consider themselves Democrats anymore. You've got the millennials that are saying we don't support either party. So, you know, you have millennials, you have 3% voter turnout for millennials. It's not that they don't care. It's that they can't identify with either party, all 3 parties, actually. So, I mean, I think that's why we need to have more than 2 or 3 parties.
Where's the third party?
What? No, I'm saying.
There's not a third party.
Okay. Let's take a break. Let's take Lefty on line 3.
Oh, wait. Now the Libertarian's telling me what to do here, huh? Hey, what do you want, Lefty?
Hey, what do you mean Mike Brown was up here campaigning? He was up here last Friday.
No, he is. He's doing stuff up here, but the other 2 don't seem to be, you know, doing. I mean, Mike Braun, you know, we called him on Thursday. He's like, yeah, I'd love to come on. He's, you know, obviously buying a bunch of spots here during Laura Ingraham that you guys could hear. He has not, like, just ignored Northwest Indiana, and it seems like the other 2 candidates, for whatever reason, aren't having a big interest here.
He's doing a great job. I think he'll pull it off.
Who, Mike Braun?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a 10-point lead.
Yeah.
He's just like a guy. He doesn't even wear a suit to the debates.
Well.
You got a suit? Lefty, you got a suit?
You should have been at that Lincoln dinner the other day. You'd seen me in a suit.
Did you wear your funeral suit?
No. The region we have our funeral suits.
That had his funeral suit on. They're now.
No, how many suits do you have, Lefty? How many suits does the average tow truck driver have in Lake County? Let's do a poll.
I I think I got about maybe 12, 15.
You got that many suits?
Really?
Yeah.
Where do you go with them? I've never, honestly, and I've known the Narcies for generations now. I don't know if I've ever seen you in a suit there, Lefty, nor nor your brother.
Oh, man. Why don't you wear a suit one of these days when you're standing out in the front over there on the boulevard?
Because I only got like 2 suits. One's black for a funeral, and then the other one is like in case I gotta like give a speech or something.
I'll tell you what, if you stand out there in a suit, I'll come and stand there with you.
Another reason to not ever wear a suit. Hey, who's gonna win the sheriff's race?
I'll tell you that in November.
Oh, stop. Bye. All right, anything else you want to chime in on?
No.
Okay, bye. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Hi, Economics Dr. Jess Ortiz. Want your vote. We continue to have more abandoned houses than homeless. This can happen to anyone, including children. It is a waste of resources that lowers property value. I, Ortiz, pledge to resolve this ethical, legal, and economic mandate through improved policy without additional taxes. God willing, leave no homeless behind. Vote.
Paid for by Committee to Elect Dr. Jesus Lewis Ortiz, North Township Advisory Board.
Elections matter, qualifications matter, integrity and honesty matters, and most of all, experience matters. The Honorable Lorenzo Arredondo possesses all of these qualities. Make a wise decision. Vote for Arredondo for clerk on May 8th. Arredondo for clerk. Honest, trustworthy, dependable, and experienced. And there's no substitute for experience.
My name is Lorenzo Arredondo, and I approve this message.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Arredondo for clerk.
Come out to Napleton's River Oaks Honda during the Honda Memorial Day sales event and save big on all new 2018 Hondas in stock, including Civics, Accords, CRVs, and Pilots. This weekend only, the first 25 customers get a free smartwatch with a test drive. Come find out why you always get our best deal at River Oaks Honda. As always, Indiana residents pay Indiana sales tax right off 8094 on Torrance Avenue or online at riveroakshonda.com.
Second to none since 1931.
Must be 18 years or older with valid driver's license. Limit 1 per household. No purchase necessary while supplies last.
Hi, it's Mara Candelaria Reardon, your 12th District State Representative. The people you trust most, firefighters, policemen, teachers, and farmers, have all endorsed me to continue doing the people's work because they know that I will make sure their voices are heard at the State House. I humbly ask you to join them and vote Mara Candelaria Reardon for 12th District State Representative. Paid for by citizens for Mara Candelaria Reardon.
John Salzader, candidate for North Township Advisory Board. I am fully qualified, experienced, and will bring a new face and new vision to your township government. Elect John Salzader, SALZEIDER, on May 8th, Democrat.
Approved and paid for by the Committee to Elect John Salzider.
AM 1230, WJOB, and 104.7 FM. Also on the TuneIn app, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube in video. You can catch us anywhere, and we wish you would. And that's because we are the voice and face of the region. I would like to thank all of our sponsors that are making it happen. And I'd like to thank all the candidates, too. We have, going into May, it's a weird time. And we'll explain that in just a second. But I got to give you traffic. 294 around the city is a little bit heavy from Cicero up to Stevenson. But we're okay there. 80 going east and west looks good to Bishop Ford. It's a little bit heavy through the merge in the southern end of the Dan Ryan. But I'll tell you what, you'll make it through. It's about normal or even lighter than normal. Even going into Jane Burns, a little bit lighter than normal. Skyway and Toro, Borman I-65, US 30, and Klein Avenue all moving along well. We're in that weird part of the year where the full amount of construction hasn't started yet the weather's not too bad. Chuck Pullen, I got to sneeze.
You need to get
that
one of
means
those.
You got to talk.
Well,
during
I'm
that
sorry.
time.
I was throwing I didn't have anything to talk about. You need one of those cough drops. But
traffic is brought to you by our good friends at Napleton River Oaks Honda. Speaking of traffic and big bald heads, Big Rich is on line 3.
Morning, Chuck and Jed.
Morning, sir.
But I'd be the honor to be the next person who's at your microphone, Jed, after that big sneeze. Nothing like using a dump butt.
You know what? We have one. They wanted to put one in, and I'm like, really? I mean, we're not putting a sneeze button in here, and all these guys want it. And I'm like, forget it. If you got to sneeze, just let people hear it. Go ahead.
Why be professional now?
Exactly.
Anyway, so I left early. I have a meeting in town. I said I'll take the freeway today, and it didn't look too bad. But so I took the Klein Avenue to the Bishop Ford to the Meg Ryan, and it was about 44 minutes all the way to guaranteed low attendance filled. So
Okay, so
a little bit backed up.
yeah, it's getting a little bit dicey. Where was it exactly? At the merge, or once you got up closer to Jane Byrne?
I'd say about 111th and about 87th was tight, and then about 43rd Street in.
Okay, all right. So 43rd in, yeah, that looks like it's getting worse going into Jane Byrne. The merge though looks the same, about 111th to 87th. Okay. Hey, anything else on your mind?
No, it's just been quiet. Just doing a lot of work, finally getting some nice weather and getting the yard in order, so I don't have to do it all summer. I hope.
You got it, man. Thanks a lot, Big Rich. Talk to you.
All right, great. Be good. Bye.
I have Brad Nineheis and Rose Nineheis coming into our house for the weekend. They are the purveyors of a store in Los Alamos, New Mexico. They're your newest heroes. One day they just said, you know what? We raise our kids around here. We like to he likes to ride a mountain bike, and she likes to run like 13 miles a day. And they got tired of doing it around here, and they moved to the mountains right next to the Los Alamos Laboratory, and they're coming in to visit us this weekend. So I'm going to have to get the lawn in order. But Brad Nineheis went to Ileana Christian. I'm sure there's somebody out there that remembers him. Hey, we started. We got Chuck Pullen with us today. Verley could not make it, so it's basically either Verley or Chuck these
It's the two
days.
extremes, yeah. One or the
Not
other.
really. I don't think. Sometimes Verley will come up with just some, almost like she just won't listen to basically off the air. It's like, forget them. They're just weenies and they need to grow up. And she gets a very stern attitude.
Right.
Yeah.
She has her own opinions on things.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Chuck Pullen is here. We started to talk about something in the break. What was it?
Guitar Center?
Yes. Did I finish the weather? I didn't
No,
do the
go
weather.
do the weather.
Yeah, the weather going. By the way, Napleton River Oaks Honda sponsors that traffic report. Weather high of 83, partly sunny and warm. Right now it's only 53. So we have this rhythm. Yesterday, remember, it was like 35 degrees, and it went up to 80, or went up to 78 around here. So, gosh, it's just really cold overnight. Good sleeping weather, and then it gets nice and warm. And you got that today, 83. Tonight it gets down in the low 60s, and then tomorrow 80, but you get some thunderstorms coming around. And then you get some possible thunderstorms on Thursday and Friday. There's some sun mixed in with all of these days, but it won't be nearly as nice all day as it is today. Weather brought to you by Laborers Local 41, of which I am a proud alum of that fine union. Chuck Pullen is here. Chuck, what is going on with all of the retail establishments all of a sudden going off in a hurry? And first, before we do that, let's talk to Jamie on Local 599 phone line. Jamie, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Jim, Chuck. Yeah, I was. You guys had left me on a little bit ago, and you were talking about suits. I think probably the average Northwest Indiana gentleman that's not a businessman maybe has 1-2 suits. But if you're a tow truck driver, I could get why you have multiples, because every April and every October you got to go get a new one because it's almost election season. You got a lot of fundraisers to go to. So you always got to be ready,
Well, actually, if you're a tow truck driver, you just buy a bunch of tickets that you don't use. So there's that side to it also. I'm sorry, that was out of line.
Maybe they get them for gifts then when they give the ticket to somebody else to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've never seen a tow truck driver in a suit, by the way.
I don't think I ever have either.
You know what? I went, and when I was covering that trial, there was this guy that was a government witness that he had been giving Jurgensen some money, and he was working for the government. And, man, he looked like a tow truck driver, and he was trying to act professional, and he was trying to act, he didn't wear a suit. He couldn't wear a suit. He just didn't have it in him. And all I was thinking when he was talking in between, when they were guarding him kind of, and then they were put him on a stand, is that any moment this guy is just going to rip into a litany of F-bombs on the stand or wherever he's standing. Just was out of his element in having to be where a bunch of dressed up people were.
Hey, Jim, I got another question too. That big fire down in downtown Hammond. How bad do you think that's going to hurt the redevelopment area? I know you were right across the street there for a while in your business.
You know, I stay away from talking about downtown Hammond, Jamie. You know what? Hang up and listen. I'm gonna talk about this. Thank you. And I stay away from it because here's why. I've been in and around. I've been in and around downtown Hammond, and I've been part of two major businesses that just could not get traction in my family. And in the late 70s, my uncle put in McGee's Restaurant. He was going to save downtown Hammond with McGee's Restaurant. And that was there for a number of years. And then that just didn't get traction. It wasn't like a failure, but it wasn't good. And then I go down there and I go, I'm going to put my trading operation here on the second floor and of the main building there. And I put 5 traders into a room. And then I'm like, I can't find a place to get a cup of coffee down here. So I'm like, I'll open up my own coffee shop. Nobody follows me, just me. And you know what the number one problem was there? It's the same problem we had with the streaming video, internet. I could not get fast internet downtown Hammond. And ultimately I said, you know, just forget it. I just don't feel the location. It was built for a days gone by. Now everything's on interstates. It's tucked in the middle of a really kind of low income Calumet City. I just don't see why we would continue to put a ton of money into downtown Hammond. Now I know that's heresy to a whole bunch of people that kind of base their livings and their visions on downtown Hammond at some point, because there are a number of good buildings. I just believe right here on Indianapolis Boulevard is it. This is where it should be. We should be putting our money here, and then we should fix up Calumet Avenue coming into Hammond, but I don't have any power on that. So I stay away from talking about it, and I don't really go to downtown Hammond almost ever. And I don't want to diss it, but my family has had 2 major attempts and millions of dollars put into downtown Hammond, and it just hasn't gained any traction. And that's it. I don't know whether a burnt down building, maybe it'll even help because now they'll get some money and they'll just knock it down and build something really new there. I don't know.
As long as they're being heretics about this. I always think back to James Earl Jones in Field of Dreams when he gives his speech. And he starts talking about how America's been, rolled over by an army of steamrollers and rebuilt. And to me, that downtown model is sort of a relic of an era gone by. And no matter how much you try, I don't see a revitalization. And now we're into the next generation of that with the mall. You know, you lost downtown Hammond because of River Oaks Mall and South Lake Mall. And now that model is old and dated. And now that model, and that was my point from my story I was about to tell you, was I took the kids to Guitar Center yesterday. And, you know, because they have filed for bankruptcy and more than likely their stores will close. And next door is the Toys R Us that's going out of business. And there's an empty, an Office Max next on the other side.
You could go across 30 to the Carsons that's going out of business.
And they have a Carsons. And so that model that was, the model that replaced the downtown is going away as well. I mean, and we're already, so you're trying to save 2 cycles ago. You know what I mean? You're trying to save that downtown model, and now the mall model is going away. The mall model is probably going to change. People don't want to spend their lives at the mall anymore. People would rather one-click Amazon. And, and that's something that is a societal thing. That, I mean, I think we are all guilty of going into a Best Buy, spending a half hour learning about the different models of TVs and then one click buying it on eBay or Amazon. Do you know what I mean? We're all
part of it is you don't have to pay the taxes.
And then there's a tax situation which they're trying to resolve. There's the price difference because it's not a brick and mortar. But we're all guilty
in
of
brick
that.
and mortar media versus online media,
right?
Is the regulation there is also well. Anyways, don't even get me started.
You're right. So I mean, that's the whole thing is that the world is a changing. And, you have either you get busy living or get busy dying. You know what I mean?
All right. So let's look at this locally. Okay. At the mall there and at Woodmar Mall here. Gone. Woodmar's gone now, or is probably going to be knocked down. Who knows?
Carson's, right?
Carson's
Mall's already gone, right?
Bonton Stores is filed for bankruptcy. You got Guitar Center. You got Toys R Us. You got that mall that who knows how long that's even going to be able to stay, be able to sustain itself. And you have where do people go now? Now, they're all going online, but let's just say that there is a certain amount of people that need to go and aggregate in places. I went down to the Hall of Fame, the Mascot Hall of Fame in Whiting. I took Christina Cortez over here that is sitting there right here operating the dials on the video here. And we're sitting on the second floor of that thing looking out, and Mayor Stahura says, Christina says, well, what's going in that spot there? And he goes, oh, they're going to put a 64-unit apartment complex with 18,000 square feet on the bottom level of retail space.
Right.
Okay? I don't even know. I hope that is, that's one of the things that they're thinking about. And Christina's like, really? Oh, when's that coming? So she's like, all right, I'd like to live in an apartment. I don't want to move all the way to the city. But, I don't want to live in Maryville in one of those sprawling apartment complexes. I want to live in a semi-urban area, but still be in the region. Perfect. Redevelopment of Whiting. And perhaps that is the kind of thing that will happen. So when I talk about downtown Hammond, is it possible that they'll put some residences down there and people will come back and they'll live in a more dense area? Yes, it's very possible. And if that were to happen, you'd have the North Harbor area of East Chicago. You'd have Whiting. You'd have downtown Hammond as kind of the leaders in that. You'd have the Square and Crown Point putting some upscale apartments around it because people want to live in bigger clusters. It's no longer the American dream to move out and live with a big yard where you got to, walk 50 yards to get to your neighbor. And that is one possibility of what happens on the north end, and Whiting is leading the way. 64 units right there next to this Mascot Hall of Fame, upscale apartments. And my guess is, yes, they'll rent all of them.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that, and I don't, I didn't follow Whiting's, I didn't follow how it got to this point, but I would say a lot of it happened organically, or a lot of it happened because the people continue to support those small businesses. All those little businesses in downtown Whiting aren't there because they look good. People have obviously using them and going there, and they're doing innovative things. And, Whiting is basically, they're having all these different, it seems like every time I go to Whiting, there's either a car show or obviously Pierogi Fest. There's always something happening there to draw people in, and it's working. Just like, and I look at the Hessville thing, what they're doing in Hessville, that's worked phenomenally well. I've been to Hessville a couple of times for the different, the food truck events and stuff like that. And I love going to Hessville. And they found a way to make it work. Do you know what I mean?
So what do you make of all of these places going out of business?
I think that, habits change. And so our society can no longer support these giant, a giant Sears, a giant Amazon, because that is one of those things. It's like, like I talked about last time, is that, Sears catalog should have been Amazon, but they didn't have the vision for that. And so that's the whole point, is that, our society can no longer support these giant mega stores full of stuff when you can just, like you said, walking around all day long looking for things in the dark corners of that store, when I can just Amazon all that stuff in 5 minutes. Why would I spend all day at
It's really it's accelerating right now, and we're seeing it right now in the region. I mean, right down the street, Carson's bankruptcy. Maybe somebody rescues it. There's so many people in the know are like, well, Jed, don't report too much on the death of Carson's. All we know is that it's in bankruptcy right now. I know how to maneuver around bankruptcy. My dad, my uncle's construction company filed bankruptcy in the early 80s, late 70s, and we bought this out of bankruptcy. I know what that means for a business. I mean, it's not a good thing. You got Guitar Center, you got Toys R Us. You had another big one yesterday, and I can't remember what it was. And they're just all kind of falling down. At the same time, Facebook, Google, and Amazon are making billions in record profits. I think ultimately that we're going to wake up to see what we've allowed to be created, and that the regulations that we have put forth, they've basically learned how to get around all regulation.
Right.
The European Union on May 25th is going to put some wicked regulations on Google and Amazon and Facebook, and we'll see if that changes things.
Right. But I mean, you're not, that's the whole, that again, going back to the libertarian philosophy is, if people are using Amazon, they clearly are happy with it. Nobody's putting a gun to their head and say you have to buy everything on Amazon. So this idea that, does Amazon have an unfair advantage? Are they monopoly? And that's the whole thing, discussion now is, not once you have a monopoly, now it's time to break it up. And the question is, well, people are using it. You know what? People are using it because it's innovative, because it's giving them something that they don't have otherwise, and that's why they're choosing Amazon over going to Carson's.
Okay, but at the same time, why are we giving them the advantage of being able to? Remember, where I was buying that $10,000 mixer, and I talked to you, and I'm like, "Hey, Chuck, Sweetwater's offering it to me, but I got to pay $720 of taxes."
Whose fault? That's not Sweetwater's fault.
It's not Sweetwater's fault, but I'm like, I'd like to, I buy everything from those guys, and typically it doesn't matter when I'm buying a $500 piece. I'm like, great, I'll pay the the $350 on it just because it's the local people. But when you're buying a $10,000 piece and you get the exact same piece without paying $720 because somebody on the internet on Amazon will sell it to you, same warranty and all that stuff, you just don't have to pay the state sales tax. We have given them an advantage. It has to get out now. It's in front of the Supreme Court, but who knows which direction that'll go. Anyways, hey, you know what? We'll be right back. AM 1230, WJOB 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana, the voice and face of the region.
You do have a choice for a new beginning. Vote Wally DeRose for Lake County Sheriff. He has an outstanding record as police commander, federal agent, and Army veteran. Integrity, honor, and a lifetime of service in Lake County. Paid for by the committee to elect Wally DeRose.
My name is Ernie Dillon.
My name is Joe.
My name is Bill Emerson Sr.
We are veterans supporting our fellow veteran, Rich Novak, for North Township Board.
Rich is experienced, dedicated, hardworking, and professional.
Remember, vote on Tuesday, May 8th.
Approved and paid for by the committee to elect a vet, Richard J. Novak.
JED's Garden Family Restaurant, located at the corner of Klein and Ridge, is Griffith's locally owned family restaurant with a down-home feel and made-from-scratch favorites you will love. Open daily from 5 a.m. to midnight, JED's has you covered with breakfast omelets, salads, stir-fry, seafood, and steak sandwiches. In addition to our award-winning lemon rice soup, 4 additional soups are served daily. Along with our recently expanded spirits menu, Mondays are half-price margaritas, and Wednesdays are $1 off domestics. Mention WJOB for 20% off your order. We'll see you at JED's at the corner of Klein and Ridge.
On May 8th, vote for Democrat Andrew Silvestrowitz for Lake County Clerk of Circuit Courts. Andrew is a qualified Democrat and has 12 years of experience as a councilman in Maryville at every facet of government. Make your vote count with Andrew Silvestrowitz for Clerk of Circuit Courts. Paid for by committee to elect Democrat Andrew Silvestrowitz.
I am Andrew Silvestrowitz, and I approve this message.
AM 1230, WJOB on 104.7 FM, the voice and face of the region. I sneezed, and it's already a meme by MX. Put it up on the screen, will you, Christina?
And that's the new media. I mean, think about how quickly.
Fish Belly sneezes and finds traces of wampum on his sleeve. They got a picture of me sneezing. All right, whatever. Just get that off of there. Hey, 294 around the city looks pretty good. 80 going east and west looks good. Bishop Ford is a little bit heavy, 111th to 87th, kind of heavy. It got pretty heavy through that area. Also, it's 47th on in. As a matter of fact, basically from 111th all the way up to Dan Ryan, you got stop and go. So even if you take the Skyway Toll Road, you're going to wait once you hit the Dan Ryan. So still go Skyway Toll Road and avoid the merge, put it that way. And Skyway Toll Road moving well. So is the Borman and I-65 US 30 and Klein Avenue. We're all moving along pretty well. Traffic brought to you by Napleton River Oaks Honda, proudly serving Northwest Indiana with superior customer service. Let's take a look at what's going on in the weather. I have 83 today, people. Just an amazing day. Billy Baker, sorry, buddy. I'm not going to go golfing today. I got to go to the Business Industry Hall of Fame. Bill Hassey, I think Billy's his son. Bill Hassey and Jeff Strack are going to be honored, along with Mr. Albanese of Albanese Candy and 2 other people. And that is the Times Big Shindig, and I'll be going out there to support the Times more than and support Bill Hassey and Jeff Strack. And that'll be today. So I got to go to that. I won't be able to go. So a high of 83 today, a nice hot day to put a suit on. Is it okay if I don't wear a suit today
I think
to
it
this
is.
thing? I'm just going to put a sport coat on and then something you can take off on the way out of the Avalon. You know, by the way, I had this discussion with Stahura yesterday, the mayor of Whiting, and let me talk about that in a second. Anyways, a high of 83 today, high of 80 tomorrow. Then Thursday and Friday, it gets a little cooler, high of 74, 71 with a couple of showers, and a high of 67 by Saturday with mostly sunny. And weather brought to you by our good friends at Carpenter's Local 599 right here in Hammond, been around since the 1890s. And what do you have in terms of so we got the weather there. We got the traffic brought to you by Napleton River Oaks Honda. And the markets are just down slightly overnight, down about 20 on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Chuck Pullen is with us. And, Chuck, I've gone to maybe 7 things in the last 2 weeks. I don't know why I'm loaded up with stuff. And they've either been at 3 locations. I've been to 2 at Avalon, 2 at Gambas, 1 at the Patrician, and then I think I went 6 things, and 1 other something out in Maryville. Everything is out there.
Mm-hmm.
They have all of these big things out near I-65 and 30 when some of that stuff could be had. I mean, I see all the people that come from North Lake County that have to go to these things. And the Mascot Hall of Fame here in Whiting that Stahura and Al Spager gave us a tour of yesterday, on the top floor of it, they've got this really nice meeting space. And I'm like, man, I just hope people take advantage of this and don't make me drive out to Maryville every time we have something. But that's just how it is for some reason. Also, the yacht, the marina, the Hammond Marina has a really beautiful space on the second floor.
Overlooks the marina, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, why are we never not going on the lake, man? We always got to go out to Maryville for these things.
Right.
And I'll just throw one of them out, my NIPSCO CAP meeting. It's always at Gambas, and I love going to Gambas, but how about having something up here?
Right.
Maybe that'd be another change is if we were I mean, we do get something over here across from Olympia Dynasty in once in a while, but for the most part, everything goes out that way. Maybe it's because it's local. I mean, it's located where a lot of people live down there. But I'll tell you what, it's sure as hell nicer looking out of the Mascot Hall of Fame or of the Hammond Marina out onto Lake Michigan than to looking at a parking lot in Maryville.
Right. But, at the end of the day, though, we also have this traffic issue where there's sort of that, I do a lot of driving, so it doesn't bother me one way or the other, but there's a lot of that dread of people from here having to go out there or people from there having to come up here. So there's this sort of, especially now you've got issues with 41 and all these different traffic issues. So there's sort of this, and it's a mental issue. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not. So it's sort of like this, I don't want to have to go all the way up to North Hammond from, Crown Point or whatever. Or if you're in Hammond, I don't want to go all the way out to Maryville. And, and I think it's sort of like the region mentality of go all the way out there, or, you have a guy in Hammond going, I don't want to go all the way down to Highland, but
219-845-1100. Anything on your mind? Chuck Pullen and I are here. Chuck is not here in any official capacity. He's just hanging out. He, of course, is the head of the Lake County Libertarian Party. Now, Chuck, I've known some Libertarian all the way back to my Berkeley days, to be honest with you, and I got to go in the direction. I am sitting in class the other day. Finished my final, but I was talking to a gal who has migraines. She lives here and works at a place that actually drug tests once in a while. And she has a card in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a marijuana card for her headaches, and she can go over there and she can buy it. I didn't know you could buy it as an Indiana resident. She can fill her.
Right.
She can fill her. She says she can fill her prescription over there.
Mm-hmm.
But once she comes over here, it is treated as an illegal substance, and she's subject to all of the laws that a kid smoking weed at Riverside Park would be subject to, even though she may be doing it in her own backyard. The other aspect is, I'm like, well, what about the drug test? She says, well, it's kind of weird. If when you get drug tested, at least where I work, they will make you just show your card, and they'll actually call your pharmacy and make sure that it's all true. And if it is, they basically look the other way. So you've got all sorts of different laws going in different directions. The police here are put in a quandary. We are surrounded by Michigan and Illinois now that allow people to have cards and smoke weed for their medical problems. But you also have people that live here and go across the state line and get their cards. And there's a number of people that already have Michigan cards that need it, and they'll do it, and they come back here and they smoke their weed. When are we going to get this right?
So I've never been the type to alter my state of mind. I've always said I enjoy the state of mind. Most people don't enjoy my state of mind, but I enjoy my own personal state of mind. I don't drink to excess. I don't do drugs or anything like that. I've never been that kind of guy. It just never appealed to me. And so people always want to talk about marijuana and stuff like that. So this is one of those issues for me where it doesn't affect me, but I also consider it an important issue because it affects other people. So it's one of those, I don't have a horse in this race, but I see the effects. And you just mentioned one of the effects, and the others also being, minority, young minorities being, unfairly targeted for drug dealing and, getting, basically ruining the rest of their life over a little bit of marijuana, whatever. So there's all these, secondary issues that come from having these disparity of the laws. And so I think that's always, the simple libertarian aspect of this is we just need, we need to be fair about this. Like you said, you can't have, and you can apply the marijuana thing to the handguns, for instance. We have 20,000 handgun laws in every town, and now we're going to have towns with different laws. We're going to have states have different laws, all these different laws. So literally I could carry my weapon on one block and then go across the street in Illinois, and now I'm a felon. And that applies to a lot of things. And so that's always the libertarian philosophy of this, is just make it fair, make it common sense. People use the word common sense gun laws. That usually means, ban everything. But I just want to see a society where, we have laws that make sense. So you don't have to think about, well, am I committing a crime by bringing the marijuana from, Lansing into Indiana, or am I committing a crime by bringing my gun from Indiana to Illinois? I just want to see us have simple common sense laws. I think, and that's not too much to ask, because, they talk about how everybody commits 3 felonies a day and doesn't realize it and things like that. So we are constantly in a state where we have so many laws that you have no idea what laws you're breaking until, somebody decides to call you out on it. And you know what I mean? So that's what I think. I think there's a lot of libertarian philosophy of, for every law you create, you should revisit an old law and see if it still applies. We should start getting rid of laws. We should start simplifying the laws. Same with the tax code. The same with the tax code. I literally should be able to do my taxes on a postcard. Why do we have to make things so difficult? And that's what I always say about government. When you have big government, it begats more government. Regulators like to regulate. And that's what happens is there's this never ending black hole of government, right? You just love when you get me on these tangents. But
I do.
Having 20 different RDAs in the area and stuff like that is just government begats more government. And in the end, it costs you more money and it makes your life more difficult. Why can't we just simplify these things?
You want to talk about government around here?
Yeah, let's talk about
All right, here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to read you one out of the Times today. Hammond police arrested a man with a violent criminal past on a warrant Monday, while the suspect campaigned for Lake County Sheriff candidate Dave Dowling. Mayor Tom McDermott Jr. questioned why the Dowling campaign would allow such a campaign volunteer to canvass his city. The mayor said police arrested Ken Taylor of East Chicago about noon Monday for having an outstanding warrant for failing to appear in Lake Superior Court on an old disorderly conduct charge. Taylor also has some other charges. Dowling is Sheriff's former police chief. And here's what McDermott says. I don't appreciate a sheriff's candidate sending somebody with a criminal history to Hammond. Now, Dowling fired back, the sheriff guy, by saying Taylor wasn't his campaign worker and that Lake County Sheriff Oscar Martinez's campaign uses a Hobart man facing criminal charges. McDermott said Monday he received a call from a concerned citizen about 2 people wearing David Dowling for Lake County Sheriff T-shirts and handing out campaign flyers on Parkview Avenue in the city's Robertsdale neighborhood. McDermott said the caller was worried because Taylor asked to come inside his home. An officer responded, ran routine background checks on the 2 campaign workers, released the woman who wasn't wanted for anything, and detained Taylor.
I'm just thinking about how many of my typical sound bites apply to this story. You can't write these things. It's how we do things in Lake County. You can't run for office without some mudslinging, without getting dirty. I mean, it's all the typical stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like and it's just what I always say about Lake County. We always know how it's going to end. It's the show that I appreciate. It's sit back and have the popcorn, watch the show, because you can't write this stuff.
It gets better.
Okay.
Dave Dowling, who's running. Now, if you guys remember the backstory here, is that McDermott, Dowling Park is right over here in Hessville, okay? That's Dave Dowling's relatives. Was his grandpa or his uncle or something, was the chief of police here and stuff. So Dowlings have a huge history in Hammond. Evidently, McDermott and Dowling don't get along, and McDermott came on these airwaves and said, I'm going to kick Dave Dowling's butt.
Well, and again, this goes back to Jackie Sutton, and we still don't know Jackie Sutton, who was behind that. And it's
Jackie Sutton, explain who Jackie Sutton is.
We don't know who Jackie Sutton is. Jackie Sutton is a fake Facebook profile that said a lot of disparaging things about a lot of people in Lake County, and that warranted an investigation that's now going to be a state investigation into who it is. And the initial investigation led IP addresses back to a couple of people linked to Chief Dowling.
Okay, so Chief Dowling says, I don't know this individual. Someone with a criminal record would never be an active member of my campaign. He was just helping someone canvass the neighborhood. Dowling said Dave Sharinga is working for Martinez's election campaign. Sharinga is facing 5 separate cases of operating a vehicle while intoxicated, including an arrest last June by Hobart police. Martinez said Sharinga is one of dozens of Hobart Democratic Precinct Committee members putting up campaign signs for him and other candidates the organization endorsed a month ago. Sharinga isn't walking door to door for my campaign, Martinez said. Mr. Dowling's comment is pathetic.
Well, and let's be honest, though. Here in Lake County, DUIs don't even count as crimes anymore. So, I mean, that's not even a thing. So
Sharinga said he has been working for the election of more than a dozen other federal, state, and local candidates the Hobart organization has endorsed. So who has the criminal working for them?
Everybody.
Oscar Martinez or Dave Dowling? And does it matter if a guy has had some criminal past? I don't know. But can we cue the circus music?
As I say, the circus music is what we need as well.
You see, and I've had a pretty, I guess, after Bunsich went down and Downs rolled to turn on Bunsich, and now they've got Danny Merchik for basically answering the wrong answer to the feds over a $500 campaign donation. I mean, you got to just, you kind of lose all faith in this thing. And I thought perhaps there would be some faith reinstilled into this office, but this sheriff's race has just become a complete Lake County standard circus.
The standard, but and that goes back to what I keep saying, though, is that I keep running into people that would be perfect for certain offices. They're retired or they have a background in certain things. I say, you would be great for this office. Have you ever thought about it? I say, I don't want to get involved in politics. I don't want to get involved in that show. I don't want my, people dragging out my past. It's a typical thing is that, a lot of good people just don't want to get involved in politics because they don't want to get their name dragged.
Well, let's answer this one. Let's look at this. You've got Oscar Martinez and Repay and all these guys, and they're playing some pretty deep games right now. They called in, and Oscar Martinez called in to send it to the prosecutor Bernie Carter about Jackie Sutton posting these things, and somehow they used their powers to follow the IP addresses. I'm not sure exactly how they were able to do that.
Subpoenaed Comcast.
Yeah, but how do you do that without going to a grand jury, right? I mean, you just come up with a subpoena. I don't know.
Yeah, you had a judge sign off on a subpoena, and you're able to get IP addresses.
All right, so they have this subpoena, and they go after it, and they send it. Bernie Carter says, well, let's send it down to the state police. So now the state police are looking in, according to reports, looking into who Jackie Sutton is. But you got to look at the other side of that. Maybe they'll start looking at what Jackie Sutton has alleged for some of these people. So basically, you're calling in an investigation, perhaps, on areas that you don't want it to go.
No, you're right, and that's the big concern is that your house has to be clean. You have to have a clean house before you invite the police to come looking around.
And then you've got Dave Dowling on, McDermott coming on and just being outstandingly upset that perhaps it was Dave Dowling and Cantrell and some other people behind Jackie Sutton, although there's really not proof of that quite yet. So in the end, McDermott starts getting involved in this. And that was one I looked at. I'm like, why are you getting involved in this? This race has taint all over it. I'm sorry. It has real deep rivalries amongst people in all of the different camps. There's some people that just downright hate each other. There is no advantage to getting involved in this race.
No, and everybody looks for that. I mean, it's one of those cheap shots kind of thing. It's like, oh, there's a chance to get back at the guy who, people don't forget, vengeance is a dish best served cold kind of thing. Somebody says something about you and you get an opportunity to, that's the whole thing about, I'm a big believer in karma and things like that. Like things always come back, and so you just kind of sit there and just wait for your opportunity. So I get it. There's certain, I get where they're coming from.
Ken, how are you, man? What's going on?
Good morning. How you doing?
All right, what's happening?
Hey, how do you think the Times got that picture?
What picture?
Do you think they just follow police officers around?
What picture?
The picture of the campaign worker holding up the Dowling things with the Dowling T-shirt.
I don't know. What's your conspiracy theory?
My conspiracy theory is it was given to him. It's something that somebody wants out there.
Well, if that's the case, the one thing that I tell these guys around here at election time, Harlow will tell you this, and I've even told it to a couple of Times reporters. We're going into a really sensitive time with a very close election. Do not get played. And you can get, how it is.
Right. Absolutely.
You can get played, and people are mad. Why are you covering this, or why aren't you doing that? Really? Because I just fell off the apple cart. Okay. In the 80s, had Larry Peterson tell me, just don't get played. Don't get played right up going into the last few days. You can get mad about the whole circus atmosphere of it, or you can poke fun of it, but just don't take sides and don't get played. And then, hold on a second, Ken.
Okay,
and so what happens is, because you won't take somebody's side or you won't cover their yard stealing story or whatever, they think you're for the other side or whatever, when you really don't even give a rat's butt. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple things. Remember in the judge election, we had Roy Dominguez and the sort of blow up in the courtroom with Catherine Paris. That was a similar type of thing. I mean, this doesn't mean this isn't true. Obviously, there's a picture. This guy was out canvassing. The question is, normally this would be the police would come, they would deal with it. Nobody would ever hear about it. How did a picture of the police officer standing there talking to this guy make it to the Times? Because it's a story that someone wanted to push out. And so it doesn't make it any less true. It just means, why is it that this story in particular is out there?
Ken, that's a good point. And I will put out thank you, Ken. And this will go to you, too, to be honest with you. You just got to watch about getting played, especially in these local elections near the end.
Well, you can tell how cynical we all get about these things, where it's like, oh, another sign stealing store. And then videos come out. Last time there was videos of people stealing signs and all these things. And now you've got the Jackie Sutton thing. It's the, same game, just a more high-tech version of it. You get very cynical about the whole thing, where it's like, I don't trust any of you because like you said, everybody tries to play you one way or the other. It's just hard to trust anybody anymore. I mean, honestly, it is. Tell me it's not. It's like, I like you, I just don't trust you.
Walt has a lot of trust for local leaders. He's been exhibiting that on these airways for a couple of decades. Hey, Walt, how are you?
Okay, well, I got a letter from the National Libertarian Party inviting me to become a member, and I thought, how did I get my name? And at first I thought, well, maybe Chuck did it. But then he was talking about the marijuana issue, and I realized that I'm on the list with the Cato Institute out of Washington, which is a libertarian organization. And
right.
They generally have a conference here in Chicago in the spring, and it suddenly dawned on me that that's probably where the Libertarian National Organization got my name. But it reminded me of about 10 years ago, I attended a Cato meeting here in Chicago, and their main speaker was at the time the governor, a Republican governor from New Mexico, and I think his name is Mr. Johnson. And in any case, he was giving a very impassioned speech about how we need to legalize marijuana, and there was a certain sympathy in the room until I put this question to him: are you prepared to stop at marijuana? If you open the door to that, what about cocaine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And of course, he immediately, without hesitation, said, "I think it all ought to be legalized." There was a kind of cold that went through. You could just sense it going through the room. That wow. So Chuck, you clearly probably want to see legalization of marijuana. Are you prepared to go further than that? Cocaine and all the rest of it.
So here's the thing.
Hey, Walt, can you do me a favor? We're up against the clock.
Yeah.
Hang up and listen.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So
buddy.
no, I mean,
thanks, Walt.
And I look at it from the other perspective of the opioid crisis. That's a completely legal drug. You know what I mean? That's a legal drug signed off by the FDA, created by Big Pharma. So I mean, on the other aspect of it, you have opioid. And so I would say I am a moderate libertarian. I would say I always take a wait and see approach. Do I think that we'll have corner meth labs one day? In the back of the Walgreens? No. And I know that there's a lot of, again, I butt heads with a lot of libertarians because I say, let's take a moderate approach to these things. Let's not just turn off all drug laws. Let's not, just start bringing in, have opium dens and stuff like that. I'm moderate about it. I think we have, you use the example of people with migraines and things with marijuana. You can look at marijuana and say, look, there's some valid people with glaucoma, people suffering with cancer, all these reasons. Anxiety. There's all these reasons that marijuana, and when you look at, okay, I can either have somebody taking opioids all day long, or I can have them smoking some marijuana or whatever. I hear people talk about edibles all the time, that these people with anxiety just eat an edible and that gets them through the day, other than instead of taking, 10 different drugs, they take an edible. And that, to me, I say, which one's better off for that person long term? I'd say, smoking a joint or having an edible is better than taking opioids and Xanax and whatever all day long. Do you know what I mean?
He's Chuck Pullen. He is come in and sat with us. Verley will be back next week. Chuck, as always, thank you. I will not be here next week on Tuesday. Verley will, and I am going to the Streaming Media Conference in New York City. We are set to make some major decisions about the direction that we're going, and Chuck has been helping me all along, so I'm sure we're going to have some long discussions about this.
I await your phone calls.
There it is. All right, guys. I'll be right back on The Voice, and we're going to do a new one, or we're going to keep on this one? We're going to stay right here. All right, we're going to have Steve Shekel and Frank Mervan III up next on The Voice and Face of the Region.
This is Judy Mervan, daughter of State Senator Frank Mervan, and I'd like to tell you why my father is a strong choice for state senator. He fights for what's right for working families and champions legislation that upholds our democratic values. His strong voice stands up for workers' rights and creates and protects good-paying jobs. His commitment to working people earned him endorsements by many unions. State Senator Frank Mervan fights for the highest quality of education for our children because they deserve the best. He's a strong advocate for our teachers, which has earned him the endorsements of all teachers' associations. He's a strong voice for equality and justice for all our citizens. He fights for families to have the health care coverage they need. My father, Frank Mervan, has a strength of experience and is in touch and involved with all our communities. He is a state senator you have come to know and trust to build a better future together. Please vote for State Senator Frank Mervan, paid for by the committee to re-elect Frank Mervan Jr., state senator.
John Salzader, Democratic candidate for North Township Advisory Board. You have heard me on these airways before talking about my family charity, its events, and the groups it supports. Now I've decided to run for your North Township Board. I am well qualified and ready to work for you. Elect John Salzader.
Approved and paid for by the committee to elect John Salzader.
I want to be like the pretty people on my TV.
Now you can.
All I need are gleaming white teeth.
We can help you.
Can you find the right dentist for me?
Dr. Andy Coulteritis, he does cosmetic dental.
Will he hurt me?
No, he's gentle.
I'm terrified of pain.
He's the kindest in the land.
He sounds great. Could you repeat his name?
Dr. Andy Coulteritis, 219-836-1111.
Thanks.
Dining Solutions is proud to present the 2018 Mother's Day Champagne Brunch on Sunday, May 13th at Wicker Memorial Park, 2215 Ridge Road in Highland. Treat your mom to a fabulous meal, a beautiful view of our scenic golf course, and a live performance by Peter Oprisco singing Frank Sinatra era songs. Our buffet includes breakfast items such as scrambled eggs, bacon, French toast, and biscuits and gravy. Or enjoy lunch with our homemade bread, salad, Italian sausage, chicken, baked fish, potatoes, vegetables, and carving station with roasted prime rib and ham. Finish it all off with our delicious desserts and chocolate fountain. Available seating is from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 12:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Reservations can be made by calling Dining Solutions at 219-923-3830.
That's called Dead Air Dedelow, because I was eating a cotton candy donut that Chuck Pullen brought in from Dunkin' Donuts. And it's horrible. Just horrible. I just kind of ate the top of it off. Don't order them. I got these little bits of. It's supposed to taste like cotton candy, but it's kind of like a Pez that fell on the floor of your garage, and you found it 6 months later, and you're like, oh, what the hell? I keep a pretty clean garage, and you eat it, and it's just not good, and that's what I just ate. So. Let me spit this out here live on the air, and let's move on. 294 around the city. From Cicero on up to the Stevenson is a little bit heavy. 80 going east and west looks pretty good. The Bishop Ford starts getting bad at 115th, and it's bad all the way to O'Hare on the Bishop Ford, Dan Ryan, Kennedy. So I hope you're not going that way. Like, I hope you don't have to go to, like, West Diversey, like just west of the Kennedy, because if you have to go there right now, life sucks and then you die. Skyway Toll Road, Borman, I-65, US 30, and Klein Avenue are all moving along pretty well. Traffic brought to you by our good friends at Napleton River Oaks Honda. I want to tell you that this segment that we're going to go into is brought to speaking of Chicago, is brought to you by our good friends at Rush Radio Surgery. Their dedicated, experienced team mission is to provide the highest quality and most compassionate cancer care, and that's at Rush Radio Surgery. Go to rushradiosurgery.com if you got any questions. In terms of the weather, let's just all give a general in unison hallelujah, because after 207 days since October 4th, we're going to reach 80 degrees today. It has been that long, partly sunny and warm, and a high of 83 here. And then tomorrow, high of 80 again, a shower with thunderstorm and spots. Gets a high in the low 70s on Thursday and Friday, but thunderstorms on the next 3 days. But after today, but you also get some sunshine in there. But most importantly, on May 5th on Saturday, there's a number of big things happening. In the morning, the hard hat outing. I'll be out there, and that is a big construction union thing for people who hire union guys and the contractors and the union members themselves. And then Alexis is giving 2 commencement speeches on Saturday at 11 and 3. She'll be the commencement speaker here at Purdue Northwest. And then perhaps most germane to the conversation coming up to us right now is the NISA fundraiser is at the Gary Airport in one of the huge hangars. And one of the big mysteries is it going to be nice enough to open this massive, the largest garage door in Northwest Indiana, and open it to the tarmac, which is closed right now. So we'll be able to open it up and it kind of be a semi-outdoor party. We've got a high of 67 when the party starts at 3:30. It is actually supposed to be 67 and then go down to about 63 or 64. So I got a feeling that we're going to be able to open the door. Anyways, weather is brought to you by our good friends at Ironworkers Local 395. They build stuff. Steve Shuckle is here. He is the police chief in Munster. How you doing, Chief?
Doing well, Jim. Thank you.
And how long you been chief now?
10 years.
10 years. Gosh, that long? I remember when you got hired. It's like, who is this guy? Who is this Lowell guy?
That's it.
You are a Lowell guy. Isn't that where you
Graduated from Lowell, yes.
Really? How was it? Did you take shop there?
One class, woodworking class back in the day.
You never took auto shop there?
No, I didn't take auto shop.
They have that big building in the back?
They did. And it was still going on when I was in high school.
Blanchard. Remember Mr. Blanchard?
I do.
Mr. Blanchard, his daughter married my uncle. So I was very familiar with that facility. We would go out there and hang out. I didn't know a thing about cars as a kid, but it was a huge program at Lowell. I imagine it still is. It's created a lot of people that work in the local auto repair facilities around here.
I'm sure it is. I saw something in the paper about a month ago where they're competing in Indy with electric cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it seems like the program's still alive and well.
And luckily, Steve Shekel did not go into auto repair, and he went into law enforcement because he's the chief of police in Munster, and by most indications, he's got like an 88% approval rating. And same that Frank Mervan's a little bit lower than that, but he's been a North Township trustee for what, 14 years?
That is correct.
You and I broke into the leagues together at the same time in 04.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so did Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott.
He was a year
around that time.
Right. What I always forget is I was on the board. I started in 2001, so I ran my first election, and then right after that, Mayor McDermott ran for mayor. So just like this cycle, you have the township this time, and then you'll have the municipalities next time. So in 2001, I ran for the board.
I get to see way too much of these guys, as we have all been working on a project that will one day change the nature of economic development around here, and it'll change the nature of how we respond to emergencies around here, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But that is the NISA organization, and Steve is the head of that. Frank is very instrumental in this, and I got kind of the same role I have with Purdue. It's like, I don't want an official role, just let me come and go, but I will definitely be involved. And ultimately, there is, I'll let Steve, short version, what does NISA do?
Well, NISA stands for Northwest Indiana Information Sharing Security Lines. It was originally the Critical Infrastructure Group, which was started by the U.S. Attorney's Office after the events of 9/11. And that was basically to make our infrastructure more resilient and assist it in, if there is another attack, to get it back up and operating in the shortest period of time. And that continued on up until 2008. We all remember the flooding in 2008. At that time, our expressway was closed, I believe, for about 10 days. And our critical infrastructure partners like U.S. Steel and all the other plants along the lake were really hampered. They basically idled during that time because they couldn't get product in or out of the plants. So as a result of that, U.S. Attorney Dave Kapp at the time met with U.S. Steel's global security manager, Rich Douglas, and they decided to take this critical infrastructure group and make it more robust. And instead of just having a quarterly meeting where everybody would meet and greet and exchange business cards, they actually wanted to accomplish projects. And from that, NISA was born. And NISA has since then taken on some big projects and been successful. We have some wins under our belt, but our work is far from over. And what we see is emerging as a great partnership as corporations become more disaster-minded and realize that there's a lot of money, lives, and property at stake, that we are a good partner with the private sector. And what we offer is the ability for their continuity of operation to kind of embed with NISA during times of emergencies. And they're at the decision-making table. So next time our expressway gets shut down or something catastrophic happens, their managers will be at the table, and they'll be able to be in part of the decision-making process with the public sector as to if we're going to close an expressway, what's our alternate routes?
He's Steve Shekel. So I know this isn't the sexiest of topics or even the ones that you want to think about, but there is a possibility that we have a disaster again around here. We've got a lot of things you could start thinking about them. What is even possible, and even stuff could happen that no one ever even thought of. And the ultimate, I guess, germination for Frank and I getting involved in here was the flood of 2008. I opened my big mouth and just went nuts on the air a few times because basically all of the information was going through WJOB because we didn't have the infrastructure to deal with it. And we did our part, and if you remember, I was on the air for like 6 days, but near the end of it, I was just like, I can't believe there's not a better built-in way of doing this that is an official way amongst our various governments. And Shekel said, well, what a great idea, Jim. Why don't you get involved here since you brought it up? And so I've been involved with these guys for years. But ultimately, if there's a disaster of some sort, we could have a leg up on other areas by having this organization. And my involvement now is that, listen, this is a major economic development tool in that you see that there's risk analysis, which I did at the Board of Trade for a long time. And risk analysts have to go into an area, and when they start to look at where they're going to put their new businesses, especially like the Amazon thing is a big one. They had huge amount of risk analysis done in this. And one of them is, can we maintain continuity of our operations in an area? And if we can get this built and we can get this publicized, that we are much more likely in the event of a disaster to be able to keep things operating because of this location that we're going to talk about in a second. That's where I stand on this right now. It's an economic development tool. It seems kind of far-fetched, but if you really start to think about it, the site managers, and when they get their numbers back and they're like, gosh, look at this area. It rates so high on the risk analysis. Maybe we'll take a second look at Northwest Indiana. That's where I stand on this. Now, we got a big fundraiser. Well, any comments on this, Frank? What's your comment on this?
Well, I kind of want to set the table in simplicity. So what have you done for me lately? Should be a question if you're driving in a car. What has NISA done for me lately? So the first point that I want everyone to know is it's a 5-county-wide public and private partnership that brings in to a table or at a meeting room examples of the FBI, the U.S. Justice Department, the National Guard, the Port Authority, the railroads, BP Amoco, Mattel Steel, NIPSCO, ISP, the Indiana State Police. Those are just a few examples, but everyone's sitting in one room talking about A, what they have going on, and B, there are, for lack of a better term, there's practices going on in the event that there's a disaster in a 5-county radius of EMAs and people coming together with a plan. One example of that was when the Radisson was torn down, there was a nationwide blueprint kind of disaster drill going on where it was worldwide. We had troops from Israel coming in who are experts in disaster responses who came in and trained our county EMAs and our response teams how to react in the event that there was a disaster. That's number one. Number two, what NISA has done for you lately is it is organizing all the information that it possibly can on the opiates. What's going on in our community as far as an inventory of services for people to go to in the event that they have some sort of addiction in their family. And three, it's just a simple message. You get best outcomes when decision makers are in one room giving out one message, utilizing all resources in the community to respond and mitigate a disaster. And you hit the nail on the head. It is a tool for economic development for the Northwest Indiana Forum, for Don Kalabowski, when they are bringing in new companies and someone says, well, there's a lot of rail. What happens if there is a disaster as far as chemical spill or hazardous materials? What goes into play? Well, they turn to a NISA and they say there's a 5-county response team ready to react. So what NISA has done for me lately is it is organizing our disaster response to be collaborative and to get the best outcomes possible. That being said, we're having a fundraiser. And those funds, and it's a good time, it's with the Kentucky Derby, and we really need to discuss the details because it's probably one of the unique, great opportunities to be at the Gary Airport at the hangar and I'll let the chief talk about what the benefits
Can
are.
I back you up
Sure.
on one more thing before we forget to mention
And
a
there's
very
one more
integral,
thing, right?
Yeah, we got to the NISA. What you have done for me lately. Say you've got a company with 6 locations and you get hacked by the Russians.
Right, and it happens.
You
It
think
has
that's
happened.
stupid? Who are you going to call?
Right. So I'll let Chief talk about it, but we have. And go ahead.
No, he's doing such a great job. I hate to break a guy when he's in stride like that.
No stride. It's
one of the first groups, and this U.S. Steel funded our strategic plan when we started this. So it's not like we're just flying blind all the time. We're actually following a strategic plan, and U.S. Steel funded that plan. But in that plan called for these working groups. So we have 4 working groups currently. We're eventually going to get up to 8. But one of the first ones we implemented was the cybersecurity group. And that's run through a U.S. Attorney's office. But what do our partners get out of it? Well, we have subject matter experts that send out a newsletter every month. In addition to that, at the meetings, we have presentations on the latest viruses or ransomware that's going around, the latest chicanery that's going on in the internet that our private sector IT personnel would get a lot of information, useful information from. But we just had, not too long ago, one of our partners.
I was going to say, don't say the name of the company.
No, I won't.
Okay, all right, good enough.
One of our partners who was a tank line company, and they had a ransomware, and their files were getting encrypted. We, of course, called Justice Department. The FBI, it was kind of a smaller business. The FBI was declined any involvement in it, but they said through Justice Ryan Holmes, they said go ahead and send your team out. And our team of cybersecurity experts went out to this business free of charge. They quarantined this virus. They identified the virus, uploaded it back to InfraGard to the FBI. In addition to that, they were able to work with their IT personnel on site, get the backup files installed, and the next day was payroll, and they were able to make that payroll. This is kind of intrinsic value you get a company by being a member of NISA.
So the disaster response, basically, to shorten that, is that the disaster response was actually on the internet, and there have been other ones that I think since it is so confidential on a lot of this stuff, to just kind of leave it out there, that it's just one of the many things. But quite frankly, it's becoming one of the major things that Ryan Holmes and his team over at the U.S. Attorney's Office been able to implement. If you guys have that problem, we do have it. We do have somebody. We have a way locally to gather the right people in the room and help attack that. Because one person starts getting that around here, you just don't want it to become happen everywhere.
Right. And
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, one, it's a crime, and two, a small business like a Modern Drop Forge in Maryville or a Polly John in Whiting, someone hacks into their system and holds their payroll hostage, or basically is trying to hold ransom the employer for cash. And some employers will just pay that cash because they think it'll minimize the expense. It's like a lawsuit, you're settling. But the fact of the matter is it's a crime, and if you could stop these people, and this is what this response team does on cybersecurity, and it is absolutely worth the investment in time in joining NISA to be involved, to know that this is an advantage or a benefit of the membership. And our community needs to know this exists because it happens all the time. The township had hacked. I contacted the chief right away. They were sending out emails asking for, coming from me to my employees, asking for their social security number and birthdays. We didn't know how to respond to that. We're a small, operation, 50 people. We have an IT guy. He didn't know how to get through those firewalls that were created and how to prevent it. He didn't know what was breached. We have clients' information within our system and our servers. So there was a moment of, what do we do and how do we handle it? And knowing that there is a cybersecurity arm that exists in our community that can respond to that, it's a benefit.
And that was responded to quickly and taken care of quickly. We're
And
talking to Steve Shekel, the Chief of Police of Munster, and we're also talking to Frank Mervan, North Township Trustee. They're here in a different role. We're talking about NISA, and you may not know that much about it, so we've kind of gone through kind of an education moment on it. You wanted to add something there, Chief?
I just want to add my hats off to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Tom Kirsch and Ryan Holmes in particular. Those two have just been a very steady hand at the wheel, putting all these moving parts together. I just happen to be president of it. We do have a board of directors now, but the U.S. Attorney is very active in the group still. And without their coordination expertise, we wouldn't be as far as we are right now.
But we do need money, and we're going to have a big fundraiser on May 5th at the Gary Airport. And like we said, it's really kind of last year it was just a great party. Brett Bershears brings out his food, and it's great food. I think, is it Jameson's? It's one of the sponsors this year?
Maker's Mark.
Maker's Mark, sorry. Maker's Mark is one of the sponsors this year.
Well, because Maker Mark is the official sponsor of the Kentucky Derby also.
There you go. Maker's Mark is hell. So you'll be able to go, and then I'm pretty sure that Grzanic's going to be able to open up the garage door, and we're going to have an opening onto the tarmac there at Gary Airport. And the tarmac, or the runway is closed right now as they're putting in, doing some, some renovations there up in, I think, for a couple more weeks. So it's all kind of lining up to being a great party. And tell us when it is and how people get tickets and stuff.
Our fundraiser's May 5th, Kentucky Derby Day. That's Saturday, May 5th from 3:30 in the afternoon to 8 o'clock at night. We'll have a lot of food, a lot of raffles. One of our major raffle items this year is a very unique opportunity that not many people ever get to experience. Oracle has a stunt pilot, Sean Tucker. If you ever watch him on Smithsonian Channel, he's the guy in the red plane with the white lettering says, "I'm Sean D. Tucker and this is my office." He will be taking the highest bidder up for an acrobatic ride over the city of Chicago during the Chicago Air Show this year. Now, they won't be flying during the air show, but they will be flying before the air show. And the highest bidder will be able to ride the whole ride as you're doing loops and turns and twists is videotaped with a GoPro in the cockpit. So you will have it forever. Your children, your grandchildren will be able to watch you do acrobats over the city of Chicago. And that's one of the auction items that we have.
And just so everybody knows, if you've ever done this ride, there will be a number of people bidding on it, but you don't want to bid on it if you tend to throw up, or if you're just okay with just throwing up and then going on with your day. But they do have bags that they put into the.
I think it would add to the video. But seriously, that is a very. I don't want to interrupt, but I think it's awesome.
It's an awesome thing.
So there's a market of people that go from event to event to event, and they talk about all the different things that are offered that they can bid on. This is one of those things that you see on the History Channel. You see it on WGN before the air show. They take someone up. They're doing aerobatic plane things in the city of Chicago over the lake. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity. We hope to raise a lot of money with it. Also, to set the table for the event, it's a great event to bring your wife. If you've ever been to a Kentucky Derby, you've watched it. The women wear hats, they wear dresses. The men dress up in the seersucker suits and the spring clothing and cigars, mint julep. There's all kinds of things to bid on, and it goes for a good cause. And the cause is in order to try and have seed money to build a MAC center, which we'll talk about. But the event itself is phenomenal, and it's one of those events here in Lake County. It's at the Gary Airport hangar. There's music, there's barbecue, there's like I said, a great grand prize to bid on where you can go up in a plane and do with the premier acrobatic pilot in the country or in the world that will take you up with a GoPro video that you'll have forever.
You ever see that one where he like stops
in midair.
Turns the engine off, and he's going
yeah,
straight out. He's like,
that's where I want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Right for that moment. My bid will be $20.
Seems like he likes that. Oh, you know,
and then he just turns around and like, oh, don't know what to do now.
What are we going to do now? You know, turn the engine off.
I watched a video of some of the VIPs in the past who have actually been fortunate enough to be selected to do this check ride with them. And it's amazing to watch their expressions on their faces, especially when they go into negative G's, where they've experienced weightlessness, and the expression on their face at that moment in time is priceless.
Hey, we got to get this out here. The MAC Center, you mentioned something. Ultimately, this is the ultimate goal. And without going into too much detail, there's a chance that at some point on one of the runways there at the Gary Airport, we could have a multi-million-dollar center. And Steve, just want to tell people where we're at and what this center would do?
Well, the center is MAC, a multi-agency coordination center. That's where the magic happens. One of our partners in this is the United States Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard handles disasters all around the world. Back a couple of years ago, then it was Captain Neubauer from the Coast Guard sector, Lake Michigan, that recommended, we handle these disasters around the world. We found that the only way to do and manage a disaster correctly, where you have the private sector sitting down with the public sector and making decisions on what's going to be closed or etc., is to have a multi-agency coordination center. And that was from experiences learned by the Coast Guard in Hawaii during tsunamis. So we put that as one of our projects. It's been several years in the making. There's been several iterations of this, but we're confident, or somewhat confident now, that our home for this multi-agency coordination center will possibly be the Gary Airport, and this will be done through a combination of private sector funding and public sector. But that's where the magic happens, as we say. This center will be there, not only office space for very sensitive companies, but also where the public sector can embed with them in times, whether it's a cyber attack or man-made or natural disaster. In addition to the office spaces, we will have an area where we can, our war room, if you will, where we can bring all these different entities in one place and make effective, efficient decisions and prioritize those decisions.
So think about it. If getting back to how we started this thing was that, it's an economic development tool. Somebody's coming in and you say, hey, listen, here's this center, and you can have basically an office in here. And if something ever happens, you will have somebody on the ground floor. You'll be right here. Everybody will be in the area. The leaders of the different agencies and of the larger companies will get together and we'll decide, how we're going to go about it. And of course, there's different teams that are ready to adjust. Of course, it's right there. You can bring in the helicopters. You can bring in the airplanes also. It's a pretty cool thing. And we're going to have this big fundraiser. We're doing a little bit differently. Typically, you just go to the government and say, give us a bunch of money. No, this is starting out as a grassroots effort, and it's starting out with private donations and with private funding, for the most part. And we'd like you to come out, and it'll be the second annual one. Frank will be there. Chief Shekel will be there. I mean, I don't even want to go through the names, but there's a lot of folks that are going to be there. So if you want to go, it's only $50, and where can they get tickets?
They can get tickets at the Munster Police Department from 8 to 4 through Friday. Tickets are $50 a piece. We also have raffle tickets for sale there. They're $10 a piece for a 50-50 raffle. It's going to be a very huge payout to one lucky winner. So 50-50 raffle is $10 a ticket, or 3 for $25. They can pick them up at the Munster Police Department. Or at Frank, you want to tell them about your location?
Yes, you can also call our office at 932-2530, extension 324, Tuesday, May 1st through May 4th from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 3 p.m. on Friday. So tickets are available locally in Hammond or obviously in Munster.
Who's supplying the food?
Food supplied by Doc's Barbecue, Brent Brasher. is catering it the second time. Seems like barbecue.
Huge success last time.
It was phenomenal.
I mean, the food was
over the top.
amazing. Yeah, that was like one of the top things, along with the whiskey.
He does such a great job with barbecue, obviously, and he's very busy, and rightfully so. They do a phenomenal job. I also want to point out that Three Floyds is sponsoring the event. They're supplying a nice gift basket and beer. For
Yeah,
the
so I
event.
mean, you're getting Doc's Barbecue and Three Floyds and Maker's Mark. And by the way, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that you don't have to wear the seersucker suit and you don't have to wear the hat and so forth. A lot of people do. I don't want you to.
It's informal.
Yeah, it's informal. It's not a dress-up event. But
Not
you
at all.
can. There are a number of people that take it and they have the tradition. But you can also do that. And even if you don't know anybody and you're like, "What the hell? I'll buy 2 tickets and take my wife." The food and the booze and the music. We didn't mention the music is
The Milo band.
I forgot to.
I think it's. I believe it's the Bob Milo band. It's a big orchestra. It's I think a 16-piece.
Yeah, there's
band.
a whole bunch of them that come out. You got an orchestra playing the whole time.
Right.
It's not orchestra music. They play some rock music and that kind of
I
stuff.
just also want to thank NIPSCO and NiSource for being sponsors, as well as BB Coleman Aviation that's supplying the hangar for this event. I just want to get those out there also.
All right, there it is, guys. Buy some tickets. Come out. I'll be out there. I'll be there a little bit late. Alexis giving the commencement here at Purdue Northwest at 3 o'clock, and then I'll be out there. What that does is that precludes me from having to be there on the setup because I'll be over here doing another duty at Purdue Northwest, but all the other members have to be there quite a bit earlier. All right, anything else, guys?
I was just going to say Kentucky Derby is the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. If you join us, we make it a great time. And like I said, there is awesome prizes. Like we said, a plane ride over Chicago during the air show is one of the bidding auction items, and that's a GoPro video that you can have forever. So come and join us because what we learned, the disaster, which we have all forgotten over time, is the greatest commodity that is the defense, is quality information, real-time information, and all of us coming together, unified in reducing the risk during a disaster. And that's what this organization, 5-county-wide, throughout our area is doing. And what the money goes towards is just improving our response and our ability to be able to plan and manage an event.
He's Frank Mervan. He's Steve Shuckle. Go over to North Township or go over to Munster. If you really need tickets and you know where to go, come over here and Debbie Wargo will set you up. $50 a person. You will not be dissatisfied on this. And like I said, they're going to be able to open up. I think they'll be able to open up the garage door. Thanks for coming in, guys.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, be right back.
On May 8th, vote for Democrat Andrew Silvestrowitz for Lake County Clerk of Circuit Courts. Andrew is a qualified Democrat and has 12 years of experience as a councilman in Maryville at every facet of government. Make your